All right, welcome. We are back at Mr. Wells' house.
Yeah, welcome back.
If you don't know, Derek Wells, he is a one of the Nashville Cats. But this this one is a cool thing. I didn't know that you've played on 50 #1 tracks, which is insane in itself.
Yeah.
But you're give him a little background on this particular track, because a few things kind of all collided together.
Yeah, well, this one was. I mean, anytime you play on anything that's people react to, it's nice.
Yeah.
This particular project, I got asked to produce on.
Yeah.
And for Scotty McCreery, and Scotty happened to be, if you can go back, a handful of years, Scotty was one of the first. Well, he was the first master session that I ever played on in town. He had recently won American Idol, and that was, and we did it out at the Castle in Nashville, and he and I built a relationship, and then also his producer Frank Rogers at the time, they asked me to co-produce this new record with Scotty, and it was a big deal. And then it just so happened that, when it came time to pick a second single, the second single they picked happened to be written with Scotty by my brother-in-law,
Wow,
Aaron.
what a trip.
And it's Aaron's, first #1 as a songwriter. He's a great songwriter. Has had a lot of people record his songs, but this is his first kind of big #1.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the stars aligning, when I kind of started doing the math, they know a lot of this stuff ahead of time. The record labels and stuff, they have access to metrics that we don't, civilians don't have. And
right.
They can kind of call the shot, a few months away. They kind of start whispering, "Hey man, numbers are looking good. Looking February might be cool." And they start telling you stuff like that, and you go, "Okay, all right, okay." Right. And whereas, as a guitar player, I'm completely in the dark on all that stuff. I never know, I just know it I don't even know when they're going to come out, right. or if they're going to come out. Right. And so when, they kind of start hearing those whispers, and they kind of start talking, and I kind of started doing the math personally and looking at the stuff I'd played on, and it's like, oh man, this could be cool. This could be a lot of stuff lining up at once. And it was. And so, this was extra special.
So this tune made it to #1 too. So it's your first producer role.
Well, not the first project I've produced, but my first #1 as a producer. And it's actually 2-week #1, which is great.
Dude, that's got to feel good.
It was great. It's really, really special, man. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, well, I didn't blow this. Especially coming into a record that had been successful before that Frank and Scotty had done. It's like, they didn't need to ask me to be a part of this one. They were doing
pressure there.
Right, exactly. They were doing just fine on their own, and I could have been the guy that they brought Derek in, and then the record bombed.
It bombed too. Don't ever call him again.
Yeah, don't ever. In fact, don't even get him to play on the next one. Right. So, it's just really, really great that guys that I'd known for a long time and had relationships with, and outside of music. I mean, Frank and Scotty are friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
And my brother-in-law, that's a great thing.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my wife will stay married to me now. I didn't ruin her brother's song.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's all great.
So obviously we're gonna put Derek's stuff below. He's got an Insta, and you're a little too busy to be on hitting social media and Facebook all the time. But I will say this. He is amazingly responsive to the comment section, so make sure if you have a question, give him a little love. But also, this is going to be a little bit more long form. I mean, we're going to learn the parts because you obviously played all the guitars.
Yeah.
But we're going to give you like a little, here's what to think about as a player. You don't always have to be a world-class player to actually, make something sound good, because when we break down the parts that you did, they're really pretty simple. Yeah.
This is a good example of, what a guitar player would play on a song that ultimately becomes a hit. That's all really basic kind of first position serving the song. It's about impact and getting the attitude and perspective right, and a couple little, there's some licks in the solo, but it's all stuff that there's no, there's nothing mystical about it. There's
no esoteric scale.
No, man, there's no, we will not discuss modes in this video at all. So don't worry about that.
Awesome. All right. So let's get on with learning from the guy who played it.
Yeah. So for this tune, it's it's kind of a ballad. Like we'd probably call this a mid-tempo song, country. So the beginnings, it's really reserved. There's not a lot happening, right? And we're kind of just setting a tone and a vibe for the story of this song. And there's not a lot going on. In fact, there's only one electric guitar part happening, and it's the part that the song was actually written around. The songwriters, when we heard the original demo of this was pretty close to what they had done there. I'll play a little bit of it. So I'll solo that up for you here. And what we've got here is relatively straight ahead guitar part. Then we've also added some stereo delay action after the fact in the box in Pro Tools, and this would have been a plug-in. So, you know, for the original sound where I'm doing the you know, a lot of people call this tenths is what this part would be, because it's the third an octave up. Is that kind of thing. So for this part, I already had some stuff on it when tracking. It's not dry, but it's not swimmy wet. Little verb, little delay. But to get some cool echo effect and some like dynamic in the panning and stuff, we added this. So there's a little more rhythmic information now. So that makes the part a little bit more dynamic, right? So we've got those two things in there. Now, if, you know, when I'm playing this live, or when I was, you know, tracking this at the time, this is the kind of stuff where it's just simple verb and delay. You know, if you were using, you know, a Memory Man style delay or something on the line 6 effect, it would just be, you know, some sort of Bucket Brigade style. There's not a lot of modulation happening on it. It's a pretty straight ahead sound. And really what you're trying to do is make sure that the repeats in terms of volume don't overpower the original part, right? You don't want those echoes to be louder than just the standard guitar sound and overpower what you're doing there. So if we're gonna do this, you know, if we were gonna do this standard, you know, there's just a regular guitar sound, you know, I'd probably just have a little bit of, I'm just turning on a pedal board over here, I'm just gonna turn on a little bit of Bucket Brigade delay, this Strymon delay. Barely hear it in the background, right? And just a little bit of spring verb, right? Then we jump up here, right? And all that is essentially is a fancy way of spelling out the chords 6, 4, 5, and then 1, 5. That's all we're really doing there, you know? And so, yeah, that's our first, you know, our verse part here. Pretty straight ahead. So with the use of, you know, effects in some moderate and small ways, and then just basically a kind of fancy voicing that really only takes 2 fingers, by the way. That's all you got to do. You can take the same chord progression we hear so often and kind of make it into its own thing. And we really set a tone here, talking about the intro and the first verse of this song, and then ultimately setting up where the chorus is going to go next. So the verse part that's going to carry us through here, you know, it's all setting up for the chorus to hit. So we've got the introduction of some new elements here to this chorus, right? To make this, we want this chorus to bloom and to grow, right? We want impact. So this is the part that I played on the tracking floor that day when we were all getting the first take with the drums and everything. This was kind of where I started. Now, the trick there, and I'll unmute our vocal here for a minute. It's good timing. There's a little lick there that I started to incorporate, and it's around the vocal phrasing. So, I'll play this again. So, the idea for putting a little lick in that spot was based on the vocal, right? I'm hitting the downbeat on a chorus, right? before that gap in the vocal, all I'm trying to do is make the chorus blow up, right? So that's where we'll solo this part again. And then our gap in the vocal. And then I decided that I liked that part enough that I decided to double it an octave higher. So, and so when you get that part spread off on your mix on the opposite side, it creates a real nice, impact effect there. And then in the continuation of the pattern, my first part, mind you, I changed the lick. So I went ahead and doubled that also. And that's all I did. You can see here on the waveform even, that's all this track consists of is those two spots where I doubled the octave. Now, that is like the definition of studio trickery, right? So if you're the only guitar player in this band, and there's only one guitar player, and there's not two guys to do it, you're just gonna have to make your pick, basically. You're gonna have to decide, well, do I just like playing it out of the first position, like the first track, or is there a way that I can incorporate, maybe I can step on an octave pedal and kick in the high octave just for those couple licks or something like that? But, what I try to remind guys is that not all of these parts that end up making a record and trying to reinforce dynamic and trying to make separation in the course of a record are necessarily like vital to the live experience, because you get a long way in a live band, just with gusto. You've got lights and it's super loud and there's the visual element of it, right? And so sometimes like is this extra high part, if it's not in your live set, is your live show worse off for it, or are you not doing the record justice or the project justice? In my opinion, absolutely not. Like, this is just part of the tools that we use in the medium of the recorded music, And if you can't get to everything, which you obviously can't because you're one guy, try not to worry about that kind of stuff. You figure out what you can and can't cover, and that'll get you a long way in terms of doing these kinds of things. So if we zero in on this first part a little bit more, particularly this tracking guitar part, right? I'm capoed. The song is in G sharp, A flat, and I'm just capoed because I want these nice open string voicings, And the song, the chorus is pretty simple. It's 1 chord, 5 chord, 1/3, which that shape would be the B over G or G over B, to our 4 chord, our C, then 1, 5, 4. And the 4 is where I'm going to incorporate the little lick. Right? So, and I'm not pounding all of these chords. There's some delicacy in how I'm treating them. I'm kind of getting the immediacy of the downbeat. And then that little lick over the C, that's all just kind of, the C shape. We're actually in C sharp, but it's all just first position stuff, kind of ending up in a major 7, kind of voicing, but it all works with the melody and the notes there, so. And that's the whole part, that's the chorus part. And then on the end, I think I changed the lick too, because it goes to a 6 minor, so I'm going, landing on the 6. Right, if that makes any sense there. So on the back half of the choruses, there's a little more gap in the vocal, and the chord that we're basically going to land on is the 6 minor. Because it goes 6, 5, 4. So I had an opportunity to A, have a little more of a line, and A, it's got to land ultimately. So in that point, it's still over the 4 chord, but I go end on the 6. So again, out of the 4 chord, C, just a standard C shape, and I'm just going. That's the lick, you know. In time. That's the thing. And then that's essentially the whole 8-bar chorus pattern, and we're done there. And like I said, if you were the guy playing it live, you know, it's like I wouldn't necessarily even worry about that high octave thing. It's just that's in there for color and for the texture of this, you know, recorded medium. But the spirit and everything, and the line and the motion that it serves in a live context, you can get all out of that first position bit. So, okay, we're still in the first chorus of this song, right? And there's one more part that gets introduced. And it's just, again, it's about impact, and it's about making this chorus bloom. So and so we have our first guy here that we've already heard. You'll notice it's kind of a mix between the arpeggiation and the big wide strokes, right? You know, it's a lot of that stuff. You know, that kind of stuff is in there. It's kind of Tom Petty. Well, this other guy that we're going to pan to the other side, he's just pure aggression, right? He's the rock dude. There's no inside movement to him. He is Pete Townsend. You know, that's all he's doing. That's his whole bit. And the trick with these guys, when you're doing these kind of doubles, now in this instance, he's the same position, right? Still first position chords. All that stuff is still the same basic concepts. But tonally, he's super dry. There's no reverby. There's nothing swimmy on him. He's more overdriven. It's a different guitar. I believe I used a Les Paul humbucker style guitar for this part. I might have also switched amps. But when you get these two guys soloed together, you see how they interact with each other. They're both serving different purposes in terms of perpetuating the motion of the chorus, right? The arpeggiation guy's got a little bit more movement in his thing, but then you've got the guy on the right, you know, is emphasizing beat 4. You know, probably with a snare drum or something that's in there. And then when you blend in our third guy here, the octave part, and then they're out, and the verse is coming. And you can tell here on the back how guitar 1 really gets into an arpeggiation roll, right, over the chords. But the guy on the right is just holding it down. And that's, you know, again, I really always think about this stuff as like the guitar player or players in the band, right? And to me, if you have 2 guitar players in this band, that makes sense. Like that's what they would be doing, right? You got one guy that's holding down some of the motion, the other guy's different guitar, different tone, because he's a different human being, right? Different hands. And he's marking all that kind of stuff, you know, one zigs, one zags. And then they end up working together, and you get this thing where the 2 guys fill all the gaps in between. And suddenly, sonically, it gets wide and big, and it's infinitely better than just an exact double or, one guy kind of trying to copy another guy's line or any of those kinds of things. It's like it's the two distinct voices, even though albeit they're still kind of through my lens, that make this thing really like spread out and get big, And a lot of this kind of stuff is me trying to help the engineer get there in the first place, because that's the kind of stuff that they're going to be doing in mix a lot of times anyway. It's like, okay, how do I separate all this stuff? How do I make it work? So I'm trying to do as much as I can on the front end to kind of help them get there. And it also helps bring the entire track into focus for myself, for the other musicians that are working. The quicker I can get my parts dialed in and separated and making them all work is the quicker everybody else can go, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing here. I know what I'm doing here. And so, you can really, really bring things along quickly as you start to envision it as a whole and as a big piece and saying, okay, here's one piece of the puzzle. I've kind of got this layer of bricks laid down. This feels good. Guitar part 1 feels good. It feels solid. It's moving in all the right places. Now, put that guy down, plug in some cables, change guitars. I'm a new guitar player. What am I going to come in and play on this track, having that part of this little wall already built? And that's all we're doing there. So in the second verse of this song, we also start introducing some fill stuff. And if you want to, go check out this song, download this song, This Is It by Scotty McCreery, you can check that out and see how it operates around the vocal. All these fills are operating with a vocal in mind, right? So the spacing isn't random. The spacing is in the breaks of his vocal. So... And that last lick kind of launches us into the chorus, right? It's the here comes the chorus lick now, and just kind of getting some energy building into that sort of thing. And, all these licks too, again, this is, if we were talking about hybrid parts again, all of this is pretty much right in the same wheelhouse of a lot of the other tones from this same song. You would have maybe just a little bit of urban delay on it or something, maybe because just for the... And again, I don't really think about this at the time when I'm doing it. It's like a muscle memory and instincts. But if I'm taking it apart right now, a lot of these licks are basically kind of out of two positions. If you had, this sort of first position, or this sort of one chord, the G sharp, and then down here out of the D, the 5 chord, right? Those two, same thing here. And a lot of it, I'm just connecting the dots, right? So, the first lick, I think, I'm just going. So I started with the one note out here, I'm just going. And I've ended up back here down in the 5 chord position. And then we've got, again, real similar if we're kind of basing off of these type of positions from a 5 chord, right? I just went, that's all the second lick is, what's my third one here? Same. So we're here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going. Right? So again, just out of my first position shape here. Right? All that stuff's in there. So the 1, 2 note, 3 note. I'm starting on the 3 note and kind of a slur slide down to the 2. End up on a 5. And then ultimately back on the 6, because that's kind of the downbeat of that. Right, there's our 6 chord, right? that kind of thing. And then, so then we go to the chord progression changes, and we go to a 2 minor chord. I'm kind of still all out of that same thing. And then my big lick going into the chorus is over a 5 chord, right? And then we get into the chorus. So I'm just going. And if you wanted to, you could have even gone. Make a double stop out of it. But all of those little licks around the vocal in that verse are just all kind of out of these same 2 shapes, you know, and then just being aware of the chord changes, making sure you land on, you know, a 6 when you're going into a 6. Sometimes I can land on a 3 if I'm going into a 1 chord, you know, but, you know, nothing really complicated. And the idea is that we're keeping them small, kind of jumping in when there's no vocal, and jumping back out, hanging back out of the way, helping everything move along, and then ultimately the big lick going into the chorus. Or into the chorus. So that's, you know, just a good little snapshot of playing the lines in between the vocal. And again, if you want to see exactly how that worked with the vocal, you can go check out that song. So in the second verse, we also had these you know, these verse parts, right? We have our original main verse guy, right? And then we added this motion part here. And they're panned opposite for the most part. And again, if you were doing this live, you know, talk about hybrid parts, and you needed to kind of play both of those, because you've got the one guy going. I'll kill my delay for this, but we're going. Come on, we'll go. Right. And then the main guy. Back to our tenths, you know. You could combine them easily by going. You know, so if you were doing the hybrid guy, if you had 2 guitar players in this band, one guy could hold down all that for it, and the other guy can play the licks, you know, and then everything's pretty much covered. That'd be how you'd do that. Okay, so that's really all the parts in this song, and except we do have a solo section. And anytime doing a solo on stuff, you know, on popular music for the radio, I'm always thinking about the vocals still. A lot of times artists can, you know, they might be singing into the solo, and sometimes the solo may not start for a beat or 2 musically because I'm trying to give them room to get out of the way, you know. And sometimes you have to wrap it up quick because I don't want to stomp on a vocal that's an important lyrical pickup into a bridge or a down section or any of that kind of stuff. So again, if you want to kind of check out how this one particular works with the vocal, you can go check the recording online. But I also, with this, I did want to kind of have a moment of elevation and lift into the musical section, right? So here is the recorded solo from the record. And in that instance, I kind of fell off into this down section, this bridge where he's singing again, and those couple little call and answers are actually around the vocal also. He sings right here, and I'm out. And so pretty straight ahead slide solo, at least the way I think about it. Starting on the 1, and so that the first thing the first thing we did is, to get this big dramatic kind of lift into the chorus. So that's a slowed down version of it. Again, we're kind of out of G sharp or A flat, however you want to look at it. And again, we find ourselves back in this position here. I'm just starting on the 1. And from there, it's all just kind of notes in the scale of the song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7. Then back to 1. That's all it is. Do, re, mi. And, but, with slide, it's a cool thing because you get a lot of extra sustain out of the notes. You can get wide or not wide with the vibrato. You see that a lot in the blues stuff. And then you also can get some of these double stops like I do at the end where I get the 1 and the 5. And, with slide, there's some guys that have amazing slide work. Obviously, Derek Trucks. Jack Pearson here in town, guys like Sonny Landreth. They're incredible slide guys, and they have access to so many, more notes than someone like me does at will. But this is a good case of where we're not using any kind of open tuning or tuning that's more beneficial in terms of slide playing. It's a standard, guitar thing. I've got a fuzz pedal on, a little bit of delay, because that also gives me just a little bit more of sustain sometimes on some of these notes that I want to make sing. And it's also not set up any high. This is a typical normal action that you would play on any other guitar. It's just kind of all about having a light touch and the muting with your hand. But yeah, in this instance, slide seemed like the right call. The artist liked it when they heard it, and we went with that. So if I break down this solo, again, the way I think about it, it's pretty straight ahead. Our chord progression, 1, 5, 1 over 3, 4, 1, 5, 4, right? So, essentially all I'm doing is a big slide in to the 5 note over the 1 chord, which is just a note that works in the scale. So and there I hit the 3 note actually and let that ring over the, so you got the 1 over 3, 4. And then when it goes back to the 1 chord, I go. So I'm going 3, 2, 1, 7. And then it goes to the 4 chord. And I went 1, 2, 3. So again, we're at do, re, mi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, and a lot of that stuff is just melody. I'm not necessarily working out of any shapes other than my starting point being here. There's a lot of notes here, but I'm going from a 1 to a 5, 6 to a 3. 6 to a 3. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 7. 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, 1. And those are all notes that kind of work over the progression. 1, 5, 4, 1 over 3, 4. Yeah, nothing. Again, nothing mystical about this, right? These are notes that happen to fall in the major scale of G sharp. And, it's all about, eventually your muscle memory in your ear, you start to learn the notes that rub, like when can a 3 over a 4 chord rub in a pleasant way or in a way that builds intensity or suspense, but isn't just like an out note. It's the same thing of like, when can a 6 lay across a 5? When can a 5 lay across a 4? And a million of those in between. And this isn't cerebral. I'm not sitting here saying, all right, it's time to play a slide solo. So I'm going to play out of this position, and then I'm going to jump to this position, and I'm going to play this, and I'm going to land here. This is all kind of me trying to explain after the fact where my hands and ears just kind of landed me after years and years of doing this, right? But when you break it down, there isn't some, like I said, there's nothing mystical. There's no voodoo in operation here. Just notes over the scale, picking a tone that's inspiring, and then kind of letting your hands do the work.
Derek, thank you. That was amazing. And, hit him up. I mean, obviously, you might not be able to respond to all of them, but you were great on the last video. I mean, you chimed in there. And
I like to hear a lot. People had a lot of good points.
Yeah, man, it was a good time. And I really always enjoy being here. And, maybe we'll do this again sometime.
I'd love to, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, dude.